So we're joined now by Mark Liebovitz. He's a staff writer at The Atlantic, used to be at The Times and The Times Magazine. The dreaded local angle, of course, is Mark got his start many moons ago at the Boston Phoenix. Mark, it's great to see you.
Great to be here, guys.
Now, we bumped into you in the hall the other day.
Right outside, yeah.
You made a comment that wowed both of us.
That's right.
And neither of us had any idea what it was. Do you have any recollection of what it was?
Nope. Not at all.
Let's proceed
Nope,
then.
not at all.
Thank you very much.
Are we done? Are we this good?
We're not
Okay.
quite
Oh,
done.
no, okay,
so,
yeah.
okay.
No, we did say afterwards. We said,
Wow.
Mark Liebovitz, what a brilliant,
Oh.
insightful comment. And then,
It was
of course,
something about surrender, right?
It was.
You know what? And the
Yes.
premise stands. The surrender continues apace.
the surrender
Well, explain
continues at pace.
Explain that a little bit.
Yeah, so I come up to New Hampshire, I guess it was Friday, and I was actually listening to you guys on the way up. So,
Oh, thank you
this
very
is,
much.
We're all pandering here. Wandering through, what's this place? The Doubletree, there you were. So no, I was walking, I did my normal 4-year walk of Elm Street, which is the putative main drag of New Hampshire's biggest city, and usually there's a lot of energy, a lot of campaigns. Sometimes you see candidates kind of photo-opping outside these, bustling storefronts and so forth. Now, you come up there with Friday, Tim Scott got out. Vivek Ramaswamy had gotten out a couple days earlier. Donald Trump had kind of routed through Iowa, 30-point victory. That night, Tim Scott endorsed Donald Trump, and I think what I said, and I'm paraphrasing myself, is that the air was just filled with the aura of surrender.
Yeah.
This is not the pitched first in the nation battle that we are accustomed to.
It's not like Tim Scott owes his career to Nikki Haley either.
No,
right?
no. I mean,
Okay.
I guess he's a senator or something, right? I mean, who cares?
But
Yeah.
why is he a senator, for those who don't
Because
recall?
she, after Jim DeMint, his predecessor, retired or quit to. I think,
didn't he go to the Heritage?
Went to the Heritage Foundation.
yeah.
Nikki Haley appointed Tim Scott to be the senator for South Carolina.
That's right, and now he's supporting Donald Trump.
He is.
Yeah, as is,
Okay.
was Haley's replacement, as is Lindsey Graham, the other senator. Yes,
So you've written about Nikki Haley, called her a gifted performer, reasonable, solicitous, all that kind of stuff. But you
reasonable
also
sounding.
yes,
Yeah.
also says a lot of her answers didn't make sense. You had a great headline in this piece from The Atlantic. What is Nikki Haley even talking about? So what's your assessment of her and her chances?
Well, very good performer. She, as we learned in the debates, I mean, she definitely has run a very commanding campaign. I think she definitely dominated the stage. It's a pretty motley crew of Republican challengers. She proves far more worthy than certainly Ron DeSantis. I went to a bunch of her events last month, and she's really a head scratcher. I mean, she'll say a lot of things that will just really leave you either cold if you on closer inspection. I mean, she's big into malaprops. So on the day Sununu endorsed her, she said, we had all kinds of momentum, but now we have a speed bump in Governor Sununu's endorsement, which, if you think about it, a speed bump is supposed to slow you down. So she's always saying things like that, which I kind of appreciate, but she doesn't really do it comically.
I can relate to that.
But yeah, I guess I could too. But ultimately, she has this signature line, which is that rightly or wrongly, chaos follows Donald Trump, which is the most passive kind of critique you can possibly imagine, which is also totally emblematic of the quasi-resistance or the lame resistance that Republicans have put up against Donald Trump. And that's, I think, one of the reasons we're here today.
One of the things I don't understand at all, we've asked everybody we're going to ask, and now it's your turn. Who was she exactly pandering to? First, by ignoring the slavery thing, which you mentioned in your piece, and then she doubles down. I hate that expression. I shouldn't use that. She does it again, a variation, when this nation is not racist, doesn't have a racist history, and gave this incredibly. Do we have the sound from this? This is her on the CNN town hall when Jake Tapper asks her the question. She has an opportunity to escape this thing about we have no racist history, and instead she cites the Declaration of Independence. Here she is.
The Declaration of Independence. It was that, men are created equal with unalienable rights,
Exactly.
right? That was what we all knew. When you look at said all men are created equal, I think the intent was to do the right thing. Now, did they have to go fix it along the way? Yes,
Okay, that's enough.
but I don't think
and by the way, no, I don't mean that disrespectfully. I mean, it said what she said. And of course, what I looked up right after, a third to 40% of the drafters of the Declaration of Independence own slaves. I don't really understand who is the voter that this slavery and this no racism thing is going to get her who she would otherwise not get. Do you understand my question?
I do. I mean, in a way, it's a backhanded acknowledgement that, like, a lot of her potential voters are racist. And
I mean, it is, isn't it?
It is. She's terrified of offending them, of offending Donald Trump, of offending Donald Trump supporters. And I think privately, she probably has great reservations, to say the least, about Donald Trump, and probably about, what a lot of his supporters have stood for, but she's terrified of saying it. And look, I mean, for better or worse, rightly or wrongly, she has built a career on this as a politician of a dark-skinned politician in the South, and maybe she figured that that's what you got to do.
Same woman who took the Confederate flag down, or at least led the
Yes.
effort to. We're talking to Mark Liebovitz from the Atlantic.
And we should mention the latest poll from UMass Lowell Center for Public Opinion, and YouGov says Trump is poised to win the primary here by a 16-point margin over former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, which is a pretty substantial amount of points there. But, you wrote a great piece for the Atlantic, and you talked about this idea, that we say when catastrophe happens all the time, it's become a cliche. That's not who we are.
Right.
But your premise is, in terms of the Trump voters, they're Americans by the millions, and maybe that's who we are.
Well, I think it's definitely time for people to acknowledge that. I mean, I think liberals and Democrats especially are quick to sort of throw out that this is not who we are. It's either some kind of affirmation or denial or scold or something in there. I mean, the fact is there are a lot of people out there, and they've taken over one of our two major parties, and they're voting tens of millions of them every 4 years for Donald Trump. It's probably going to happen again. It doesn't mean we have to accept it or like it, but it's definitely part of the reality of.
And when you talk to Trump voters, I mean, I just talked to a few of them up here. Well, I've been here. It's not exactly a cross-country survey. But when you ask about the things he's done wrong, at the 91 indictments, or the being found liable of essentially trying to rape somebody and then defame somebody by a jury, the ones they don't believe it. They just don't believe it.
No. I mean, it's just this information ghetto, basically. Fox News never talks about it. These websites never talk about it. And I think most damningly, his, again, putative competitors don't talk about it. I think people say, oh, okay, well, that's just the way it is. This is just who Donald Trump is, and people accept it. No, I think one of the reasons he's been able to get away with what he's gotten away with is that it's been 8 years of Republican leaders, quote unquote, holding up the white flag to him.
So, for better or worse, we're talking to Mark Liebovitz. So, Mark, 115,000 votes in Iowa narrows the field to two people in the Republican primary. A moderate, even if there's a huge turnout, not a huge number of people are going to vote tomorrow. And at least my analysis is that if Haley doesn't come closer than 16 points, this thing is over. So, 115,000 votes here. Maybe not that many more in a not terribly representative state like New Hampshire, and Donald Trump is the nominee of the Republican Party. Forget what you think about Trump. There's something wrong with that picture, is there not?
Yeah, sounds like it. And I guess in that sense, Democrats are definitely justified in sort of shaking up their calendar. I mean, South Carolina is a primary. There are more voters there. It's not a caucus. And look, I mean, Biden's now getting some heat for dropping out of New Hampshire, essentially. But you can't argue that the actual official Democratic primaries won't be more representative than what we're doing in the Republican Party.
Mark, it's great to see you. And by the way, I can't believe you actually remember what you said. We can't. We have no idea what we
It is
said
all
even
such a
today.
blur. Mostly just because I repeat myself repeatedly. I'm like one of these politicians.
too.
No, I got my standard rap on.
Me too. Yeah.
No,
Just repeat the same things over and over.
Yeah. No,
Why not?
guys, always a pleasure. I love.
We're
listening to
huge
you.
Yeah.
fans of yours, by the
Me
way.
too.
Too.
Yeah.
We really are.
Thank you so
Great
much
to
for
see you.
taking some time to join us. Mark Liebovitz is a staff writer for The Atlantic. Before The Atlantic, he worked for The New York Times for 16 years. But most important, he worked at the Boston Phoenix.